podcaster. I'm trying to be a content creator, and many other things. And yeah, like Jokia said, we go way back. I can't believe it's been like 10 years. It's wild.
I feel old.
No, so old. Oh my God. It's so old. Yeah. And I think my life has changed so much, as it probably should have, since like when we were in high school together.
So I guess for the people who are going to be like, okay, you guys keep talking about high school. Okay, so where did you go to high school?
We went to the International School of Kenya.
But explain like going to ISK to like a person who's like, what's so special about this ISK thing?
You know, I have been dying to write about this experience so much because it's such like a unique experience. I mean, can I swear on here?
Of course.
We were such little assholes and so obnoxious. You know, ISK was just, it's an international school, so we had people from everywhere. We were very much a melting pot. We had people from the US, kind of like myself. We had people, Europeans. We had people from everywhere. So we were just like these crazy, like kind of entitled kids that were just like roaming around.
Not kind of entitled.
No, we were super
very
entitled. We were super entitled. We thought we were the hottest shit on earth. And we would just like roam around the school, the city, and just think that we were the hottest shit ever.
So I feel like there's nice things about ISK in the sense of, I'll tell you what I appreciate ISK for.
Yeah.
After going to ISK for high school and going to school there, when I went to America and I had to when I was in college, I went to college after I went to college in the States.
Yeah.
And when I was in college in the States, it was way more easier to relate with American people.
Yeah,
because as much as I lived in Kenya, I literally was living in a small America in Kenya. Because
for sure.
The commissary could get you Jolly Ranchers.
Totally.
The culture shock of I'd meet Kenyans who lived in Kenya their whole life, but when they went to America, some of the things, the nuances that I guess just picked up by just being around American kids.
Totally.
It helps you transition or assimilate in America.
Oh yeah, for sure. We were very much a bubble, and it was a very American bubble.
Yeah.
Very much so. But like you were saying, I feel bad talking shit about it because I do think that ISK was such a warm community in many ways. I think, when I first came to ISK, I was coming from the US and I was super nervous. I went to an all-girls school, so I was terrified. The thought of being with boys really freaked me out.
Why?
I hadn't been around boys before. And, I was 14. I was going into 9th grade. So it was oh my God, I don't know. I have all these feelings.
So what between the girls' school and ISK, did you have a choice? Or what did you prefer? I guess, was it a choice that you had a choice or it just happened?
Oh, no. So my cousin was already living here.
Okay.
And so he went to ISK. So it was pretty much all right, this makes the most sense. And of course, coming from an American culture, how you were saying, ISK was super American. It made the most sense with my academic path as well. Okay. And then I had family there and stuff. So yeah, I was terrified. I was thrilled because boys, a 14-year-old girl I was living. I was oh my God, this is amazing. But yeah, I think, coming into the school, that warm environment really did kind of help me adjust because it was culture shock in many ways, coming and being in mixed company, if you will. It was, so I'm grateful for that. And I think that very much, I felt that all throughout high school. It was a warm, tight-knit community, has its flaws, as everything does, but I think it was a special place, a special time, special community.
So where do you go after ISK?
Yeah. After ISK, I went to Washington, D.C. I went to a university called American University. Everybody here roasts me about it. AU, baby.
Yeah. They're big on diplomacy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very much what you would think of a school in D.C. It's very, it's all nerds. It was very much ooh, diplomacy. Ooh, going down the lawyer track, going down the political track. And not just that, very, very traditional, by the book, business, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you go to study?
Pre-law, which is so hilarious to me thinking about it now.
Why?
Well, I think, my parents' divorce really had an impact on me. And I really, seeing my mom give up her career for my dad, I was very much I need to have a career where no matter what happens in life, no matter, any kind of turmoil or any kind of devastation, I will always have my career. I'll always be able to fall back on my career. So I figured, listen, if I always have a law degree, I can always be a lawyer. I can make money. That was kind of my very, it's funny. It's a very serious place that it came from.
How old were you when you decided, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer?
16 or 17, which is so funny. I think it's such a serious place to come from. I'm not really that like serious person. Like, of course, I take a lot of things in my life seriously, but to come from such like a rigid, kind of almost like cold and callous place is very much not me, which is why I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, so I feel like pre-law is like, if you just like, I kind of want to be a lawyer, but I'm not. Like, is it like that, or is it like a track to go to like law school for real?
I felt like most of the people that were in my program were very much like, no, we are going to be on the Supreme Court. Like, we are going to be the lawyers.
Okay.
With 2 E's. The lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go, when do you figure out, okay, law might not be for me? Do you figure that out when you're in pre-law, or like before, like, I guess when you, okay, so you go to AU and like, how's school? How's the coursework?
Yeah, I think the great thing about my degree was that it wasn't just strictly legal work. It was also had like some sociology elements to it. So while the focus really was like, you know, going through like old cases, like talking about precedent, like going through like legal theory, it also a huge part of it was like social theory and stuff like that. And that was definitely the stuff that I was more interested in. You know, there's a part of me that loved, like, I got the chance to like go to court a few times, like with internships and like through classwork. And that stuff was super cool. But I definitely was like, oh, I think like the writing heavy side of my degree, the sociology side, studying people, studying society, how society functions as a unit, that was a part that really intrigued me. So I was lucky. I had kind of a mix of stuff. So when I graduated, I could kind of like, oh, I don't have to be a lawyer. I have some options here because my degree wasn't like strictly legal studies.
I'm curious, what kind of internships did you do while you were doing pre-law? And like for who and what kind?
Yeah, so instead of going to like big, you know, like big money firms, I actually ended up going towards like more like nonprofit-y type of stuff. So lots of like domestic violence, lots of stuff with like children and like all that kind of stuff. And let me tell you something, family court is like one of the saddest things ever. Like seeing people like fighting for custody, seeing people like losing custody of their kids, like divorces, it is nasty. Yeah.
Okay, well, random question.
Sure.
So, divorce.
Yeah.
Like, when two people can't be with each other anymore. Like, I feel like love is like something, like, it's hot. When it's really, really hot, it's really hot. Yeah. But when it's really cold, it's really cold. And you see like the worst of people and they're super in love or like not in love anymore at all.
Yeah.
But like, if you were like to create like a way, like, okay, cool. What's the alternative to divorce? Is there an alternative to divorce? Like, I don't want to be with you anymore, but like, does it have to be nasty? I guess what's the amicable way of doing divorce that we haven't tried yet?
I think that's a really hard question to answer. I think mostly because I think it depends on the couple, right? I think if you have a really good foundation and you have like a friendship there, I think then you got to kind of remember that, right? Because I think in any kind of romantic relationship, you hope that you have a friendship with that person first. So I think if you can strip away the nastiness, the pain, the heartache, like, and realize, especially like if you have kids with somebody that like, this is like your friend, like this is your family member, right? Yeah. So like you are tethered to each other. I think then that keeping that in the forefront, I think is really the only way to get through it. I think that's the hard thing about divorce. Like there's so many different scenarios, because
everybody's relationship is different.
Totally, and
but I do agree that the friendship part is important. Like in the sense of if you have a friendship with someone, then at the end of it all, like you'll want the best for them.
1,000%. Yeah. And I think that's easy to forget in relationships. I think that we get caught up with, you know, this person being our boyfriend or this person being our husband and like those titles. But ultimately that's your friend, right? Yeah. Like if that's like a true relationship and a true connection, like that's your friend. And I think that remembering that is really like the test of not only like how you part, but how you stay together.
How would you define Kui?
Oh, fabulous. No, I'm just kidding. How would I define Kui? Oh my gosh. I feel like, how would I define Kui? I would say, that's a big question. I mean, there's so many things, right? I think when you are in your 20s, like that's really the question that we're all tackling, right? Like, who are we? I would say I am somebody who is enthusiastic. I am passionate, deeply passionate. I'm creative. I'm caring. I'm someone who just cares. Like I think that's often a part of myself that sometimes I don't love, because life would be so much easier in so many different scenarios.
If you didn't care.
If I didn't care. Oh my gosh. But
I'm an emotional person. Like I get too emotional about stuff.
Same.
I'm like, if I didn't care, it'd be so easy. Like, but like, because I care, it actually hurts me.
No, totally. Wait, what's your sign? Do you know?
Sag.
Really?
But I don't tell people that because as soon as I tell a girl I'm a Sag, it's like straight judgment. Like,
oh my God, I have never met someone who's an emotional Sagittarius. Wow.
My moon is in some place.
Yeah, that's why. One of my closest friends is Sagittarius, a woman, and her moon is in Cancer, and that's where she's way more emotional than
I
she
learned
gives
more
herself
about
credit for.
those are things like my mom would be like, don't read those things. Like my mom's a typical Kenyan mom.
Yeah, black magic, baby.
She cares about nothing. Like she's like, if you read those things, they're gonna lie to you.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
then like you meet more people, and like the more exposed you are, like, okay, cool. What do I have to lose by knowing?
1,000%.
I lose nothing by knowing. Now I know like my moon is in this, my moon is in Taurus, and like I'm Sag, and whatever that means. Yeah.
You know, here's my thing about astrology. I think that I understand why it has so many naysayers, but I think it's people like take it too seriously, right? Like I think such a huge part of human existence is we want understanding.
Have you been to New Orleans?
I wish.
Okay.
That's so random. Why
because everywhere on all the streets in New Orleans they have like fortune tellers. So I went to New Orleans.
Oh,
so it's like there's lots of voodoo magic.
Yeah.
There's lots of I can read your palm.
I love it.
There's lots of different like
sign me up.
Yeah, like,
hell yeah.
It's a lovely town to like get fucked up in.
Oh yeah.
For like a weekend, like I don't like for a weekend it's lovely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love to go there. But yeah, I think people take like you don't have to like if your horoscope says that you're gonna like fall today, like it's not relax. Like
so
it's not
what
that
if your
serious.
horoscope says? So there's a girl sent me. She sent me like according to this astrology thing, the person I'm supposed to be with was born on May 4th. So she's not born on May 4th. So like,
break up with her right now.
She wishes, but like am I supposed to be looking for someone who was born on May 4th? What if I find love what if I fall in love with someone
That's
who
what
was
I'm saying.
like,
I feel like, okay, I think the best way to use astrology is as a way to better understand yourself and to be aware, right? Like just because you're a Scorpio doesn't mean that you can be an asshole, right? But it's important to know like, okay, maybe if I'm a certain sign and they have certain characteristics attributed to that sign, like that might be something that I might have. It doesn't mean that you have it. Like I'm a Cancer, right? And Cancers are notorious for being like super sensitive, and I'm for sure super sensitive, and I think like some of the characteristics and sort of the shortcomings of Cancers definitely apply to me, as well as the strengths of them too. But I don't let that inform my life that seriously. It's really more just having that self-awareness, because I think that that's anything to be self-aware, but doing it with a grain of salt and recognizing that like you still have control over who you are, the choices you make. That's also like a huge factor.
I have a bit of an obvious question, but I don't know what your answer is, so I rather ask you than assume. But off air we're talking about like you're able to do a job where you can work from anywhere. You're working remote.
Yes.
So with that in mind, because you could literally live anywhere. You could live in Europe, you could live in Asia, you could live in America, you could live fucking in England with the Queen, rest in peace. Like PISS, rest in piss.
Rip Lizzie.
But I think that why live in Kenya? That's the question I'm curious about. Like, it's like you could live anywhere. Why live in Kenya? Why Kenya?
Why live in Kenya? Well, it wasn't my intention to move to Kenya.
Okay.
I came here in September 2020, basically because I was in the US. Obviously, at that point, I was
COVID? Was that COVID times?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't remember?
It's been so long. I feel like we're still in COVID.
Oh my God. I mean, we still are, but like this is when we were like in the thick of COVID.
Okay.
Like the thick of COVID. And I had been in a lockdown for like 9 months. It was insane. Were you in the US at the time or were you here?
I was there.
Yeah. So you remember like it was terrible. We had curfews, like we were on lockdown, like it was terrible. We were all very scared. So I had been there.
We didn't have tissue paper. That's the problem.
We did not have, let me tell you something.
Tissue paper was the only thing like you could, bro,
oh my God.
Tissue paper crisis, bro, everywhere. Like it was so dumb.
Let me tell you something. It was the Hunger Games up in that bitch. Let me tell you something. I remember this one time I went to the grocery store to get toilet paper. And first of all, it was like totally
you were limited to buying like 2 rolls, or like you could only get limited. Like they were limiting you to even Costco. Like what do you mean? Like I want to buy whatever the fuck I want to buy.
I had to like call ahead and like low key flirt with a guy like from like Safeway, which is a grocery store. I had to like be like, hey, like can you hold like like a pack aside for me? He's like, yeah, sure, yeah. And I was like, yeah, okay, like okay. So I go out to get this toilet paper, and I go out and I'm walking on the streets, and it's like super creepy and eerie and very apocalyptic. And so I eventually get into the grocery store, and then like I go and I had to go. I couldn't even go get it from like the main aisle. Like he genuinely like took one and he hid it from me. Like it was a whole thing. So I eventually get it. I had to pay like a crazy amount, like $40 for this like pack of like 4 rolls. Like it was that serious. Wow. But we didn't have any, and we couldn't find them anywhere, not on Amazon, anywhere. So I get the toilet paper. And then I like go back on the street or whatever. And I kid you not, I see people like looking at me like, oh, like where'd she get that? Like they're looking at me like I'm like a predator to prey. Like they were like looking at me like, oh, like where'd she get that? Like I was like a target because of this toilet paper. And I remember I was like kind of nervous. I was like, oh my God, people are like side-eyeing me. And like people are like, I don't know if they're going to pounce on me or something to get this toilet paper. But it was so scary. Toilet paper was like a real hot commodity. Scandalous, very scandalous. So yeah, anyways, so it was September 2020 and the weather was starting to get cold and I was like, it was one thing when I was in lockdown and it was spring. It was one thing when I was in lockdown and it was summer. But what I'm not going to do, what I am not going to do is I am not going to be in my little apartment in DC when it's snowing and I can't go nowhere and I can't do nothing. So I was like, everything is remote anyway. We're not going to be back at work. At that point, I was working for like a small nonprofit doing like marketing communication stuff. Nowhere, anything that I really cared about, to be honest. And so, they had told us like, hey, like we're probably not going to go back to the office anytime soon. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, let me go. I'll come home. Like my mom is here. I have family here. My boyfriend's here. Like, let me just go and like be in the sun and like have more mobility and be more comfortable. My mom lives in Tigoni in a beautiful little cottage. So I was like, it seemed like an oasis from where I was coming from. My little cold ass.
You've been home. You've been there on your own in lockdown. It's like you probably miss family.
I'm bored. Yeah. I'm bored. I can't do nothing. I was looking at like people here and they're like moving around, going to clubs and shit. I was like, oh, like let me leave. Let me pack these bags. So yeah, I packed my bags and I came here and I was in an interesting point in my life when I decided to come here to escape the cold. I was feeling super lost. I was super unhappy with the quality of my life. Like I felt like what I was doing and the life that I was living and the things that I was around wasn't aligning with who I really was. DC is a beautiful place, don't get me wrong. And I love it. I grew up there in many ways. But it's not like me. You know what I mean? Yeah. DC is like, I'm not trying to be no one's lawyer. I'm not trying to be no one's senator. Yeah. Like I don't really care about that kind of stuff. Like shout out to people who are politically like engaged. I'm not that much, And so I didn't really care. And so I was just getting really frustrated and I was like, there are so many things that not only I want to do, but I know I can do. I have this whole side of myself that is so hungry and so creative and has so much to say, but I have not like found the outlet to do that. And I was like, I wouldn't say that I was like in a depression, but I was definitely unhappy. I was definitely in a rut and I definitely was like frustrated because I was like, this is not me. This is not my life. It's almost like having this like out of body, like this life I'm living is not mine, right? Like I'm not this person who's like gonna work in this job I don't care about for 20 years and like marry some shitty guy because he's just around and like live in the same place my whole life and like have 2.5 kids and like, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't my life and I knew that. And so coming here was really kind of like that wake up call that like, okay, like we need this change. Like it happened at the right time for me. So that's ultimately what led me to stay. But now all the way back to your question of why Kenya. I think I just came here and the life I wanted happened. My writing career took off while I was here. I felt way more creative. I felt way more comfortable. I had the chance to do things that I really cared about, be in spaces that I really cared about. The culture here just really kind of like just fed my spirit. Like it was just way more relaxed, way more comfortable. I felt like just way more open here. And so I had been here for like maybe 6 months and I was like, well, what if this was my life? Like, what if my life was living here, getting an amazing apartment here, getting opportunities here to talk with people like you and do different things here while also growing my career in the US? And what if I carved out a different life for myself? My parents were super traumatized about it. They were super worried. They were like, no, like you're giving up so much, blah, 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 whatever. But I was like, no, I can do this. Yeah. Like I can be successful here, there, and everywhere while living in a place that I really do feel like is my home, that I feel the strongest, my best, and my most creative and my happiest. Like I can do it.
I always have this thought, and I was born in the States.
Yeah.
And then
gang.
And then I grew up here my entire life.
Yeah.
And then I go back to the States for college.
Yeah.
And it's really weird because I met Kenya. I served in the Air Force, the
really?
U.S. Air Force.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you.
There's a lot you don't know about me.
Yeah.
But so while I was in the U.S. Air Force, I met a lot of Kenyans who had Kenyan last names, but they were born in Dallas, Texas, or they were born in California.
Yeah, like us.
So but they never grew up here. And
right.
I felt like it was interesting because they would have kids and like they'd be second generation, third generation.
Yeah.
And they're so detached from Kenya as it is.
Yeah.
Your grandma's in America, so your mom's in America.
Yeah.
So as much as I would and I could and I will, as much as I could and I would try to live in America.
Yeah.
Because I grew up here, because my family's here, the attachment to Kenya for me is much closer.
Yeah.
Like in the sense of, I also know the quality of life you can live.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like the quality of life I could live here, not even money related, is so much better than the quality of life I would have in America. Like I'd be working 12-hour shifts. I'd be working so long. and I wouldn't have time to even do certain things. So like, there's a certain luxury of Kenya that we don't appreciate
1,000%.
enough. Like, especially, I think once you go out there, whether you live in Dubai or South, like people living in the diaspora all over the place. Like, there's a certain quality of life that Kenya offers you that's just so much different.
1,000%. I couldn't agree more. And I really think that there's so many opportunities here too. And I think now, like, part of the reason why my parents were like, they were so traumatized because they were like, how are you going to be able to like do things there? Like they were very much like, obviously my parents like fought so hard for me to like be born in the US. I'm sure you can relate to that. Like that was like their whole goal. Like they were very much like, oh, like she has to be American. Yeah. So for them, me making the choice to be here was like, what is she talking about? Yeah. But like what you're saying, like the quality of life is just better, right? Like even besides like the obvious financial stuff, like even just like being in a country where like you're surrounded by people who are like you, where like your blackness isn't something that you have to like always stand up for or like define or identify every step that you go through. Like I think the freedom to just be Kui versus having to be a black woman in the US, like it's so freeing to me. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of like, I think just like why like life is better here in so many ways. And don't get me wrong, there are also challenges. I
think that's everything. Whether you're talking about ISK or you're talking about America, there's people right now listening that they're saying, why are you complaining about America? How would you even? Because and there's good and bad to everything.
1,000%. And like we are very privileged for the opportunity that we had to be there and in many ways like to be born there, like all the things, right? And like I don't want to take that away from our parents who like worked for that, and also like from us, like that's also a part of like who we are. But that's the reality, like how you're saying, like there's pros and cons for everywhere, even America.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, so you've been back. I've seen you do so many different things. I've seen you do
a busy girl.
A podcast.
Yes.
I've seen you do something with the Tigoni house in terms of renting it out and doing different things.
Yeah.
I've seen you do a whole event and do magazine and do so many different things. So I want to know, so you've been back since September.
Yeah, 2020.
What have you been up to? Like, what have you been doing in Kenya? So we've talked about we talked about ISK, you talked about going to America, but like now you're back. What have you been up to since September 2020? I feel like it's a lot of things.
That's funny. I don't feel like that, but that's mostly the pressure that I put on myself to like do constant. Like,
but you're doing great.
Stuff. Thank you so much. Yeah. So in terms of the stuff that I'm doing,
and you write, Kui writes.
I do. Kui writes. That was my handle. Now it's Kui Mwai. Yeah. So I'm a writer. So in case listeners out there don't know, so I'm a writer. I write for a publication called Blavity that's based in the U.S., the remote company that we were talking about, and then I freelance for a bunch of other brands like Cosmo and Elle and Well and Good and other different magazines, Refinery 29, a whole bunch of places. So now on top of that, I also like do some little projects here. I am doing some editing work for this magazine called YM Life. Super exciting. That's a new partnership. Super excited about that. We're getting off the ground. Really excited about where that's going to go. And and I've had my hand in other small projects here and there, but there's so much more that I want to do. Okay. And I am really attracted to just telling young Kenyan stories and eventually young African stories across the continent and beyond. So we're just in the early stages of like getting that stuff together.
Okay. So what opportunities do you see in Kenya? There's people who are like, okay, whatever, what's happening in Kenya? What are opportunities? From where you sit, I guess, what opportunities do you see in Kenya?
Yeah, I think that the media space here is super exciting to me. I think it's super flourishing. Again, since I work in media in the US and the UK, like they're super interested in what's going on here, right? Like if you even look at like Netflix, like they are buying more and more content from here,
exactly.
And from Nigeria. Like the people are.
I have a serious question about that.
Yeah.
And I know you don't work for Netflix, but I'm just gonna,
almost though.
For sure, if you claim it, it's yours.
You know.
But I have a really dumb question.
Yeah. No such thing as dumb questions, by the way.
Can people in Illinois or people in Minnesota or people in Ontario see Country Queen? Or is it only us guys seeing it? Because that breaks my...
Ooh.
Because I want to know, like, if my friends in Michigan could watch Country Queen. Like, if I text my
Yeah.
homie Izzy, like, yo, Izzy, can you check out Country Queen? Because I love that we're buying Kenyan content and showing it, but, like,
Yeah.
how far is it reaching? Like, can I... Because, like, VPN, I'm back to, like, you know how you VPN to, like, do shit? I got, like, if I need to go to a .gov website, I can't get in through, like, just...
Interesting.
I gotta, like, VPN.
Yeah.
Same way HBO Max, I gotta use VPN because like
Yeah.
HBO Max here is nothing. But if
Right.
you VPN, but like
Yeah.
is this content this Kenyan amazing content that we're all seeing, is it also being seen by other people? I don't know. What do you think?
That's a great question.
Someone who's listening should tell us. I don't know. I don't
Someone
know.
listening should tell us. I definitely think that Netflix and other streaming, well, it's really just Netflix. Netflix could do way more in terms of like marketing that kind of content. I know that, there was this reality show. What was it called? It was like Young African. You know what I'm talking about?
Queen,
I see the
African
people.
something, yeah.
Something.
Young, rich and something.
Yeah, Young Rich and something like that.
Yeah.
I know that performed really well in the US and the UK. I don't know though. I'm not sure how much access users over there have to the content they buy here.
Okay.
But one thing is for sure, they could definitely be doing more to market that content 1,000%. And I actually I have some connections on Netflix, and we were talking about stuff, and I think that was the biggest thing that we were discussing when I was talking to them, is that there's a lot more to be done in terms of marketing those stories. And the thing is that a lot of people who work for Netflix don't know those stories or know the people or know the creatives here. So like they're doing it pretty much blind, bless their hearts. And I think that's where the issue comes from. Like there's so much more room for having diverse kinds of content, you know, reality shows, like horror films, like different kind of stuff, right? Love stories, like rom-coms, like there's so much that can be done, but they're just now kind of like tapping the well. But yeah, there's just so much more, but I know it's definitely like a new venture for them. So I'm hoping that they'll hopefully bring on people who have that understanding, who have those connections, like myself. Got a plug. To help make that happen, you know?
Do you think that is there anything that would make you quit the America gig or the other gig? Like would you, I don't know, do you see anything that would, like, what would make you say, okay, I don't need this extra money or whatever this extra is there anything that you see like, okay, I feel like I could leave this thing to do this?
Well, I love money, so it would take a lot.
She's a real Kikuyu. Don't let the accent fool you. Don't let the accent fool you.
In my soul, in my bones. Yeah, I think. I don't know. I love my work so much.
Okay.
Blavity is a predominantly Black media company. Not
What is
just
Blavity?
in-house.
Tell us about Blavity.
What is Blavity? Blavity is a media company. It's so cool. I love Blavity so much. So they essentially create all kinds of content for Black millennials, like in the US and across the diaspora. They're so cool. And so that's everything from written content. We have several different publications within the Blavity umbrella, and we also have like a TV production house that we're investing more money and time into. So that's everything from like podcasts to like, you know, like reality shows, different kinds of shorts, films. So yeah, I really like that. I love what I get to do at Blavity. I love that I get to tell stories that are for Black people, African people across the diaspora. And I get the chance to talk about so many different things. Like, you know, one day I'll be talking about someone who was murdered. The next day I'll be talking about like, you know, like Irv Gotti and like all the stuff he's saying about like Ashanti. Like it's such a diverse kind of work. And not only that, I feel like I really am speaking to my audience. And so I think it would take me a lot to walk away from that. Okay. And in terms of my freelance career, I think the great part about that is that I am in the driver's seat, right? Like the relationships that I have, the people that I get to talk to, the connections I have, the stories I tell, like I'm very much in the driver's seat. And I've been lucky enough to really connect with some really dope editors for some really great publications who, again, are very aligned with what I care about and who I want to speak to and what I'm trying to do in my career. So I think it would take me a lot. I'm sure that will evolve over time, for sure. There's so much that I want to do here and there and everywhere. So yeah, I think, but it would take a lot for me to be like, oh, I'm walking away from everything fully over there. So,
you at Blavity, or just, I guess at Blavity, but then also the broader scope.
Yeah.
I don't want to say you're a writer.
Oh.
So I'm
You can though. I am.
You are, but feel like you're more than a writer. So
Oh,
I guess
thanks.
at Blavity, I guess what's your role and what do you how do you contribute? And then like in terms of you as a professional, would you
Yeah.
say that you're a writer? Would you say that you're a content creator? Would you say, I guess if you were to say this is my, you know,
Yeah.
what is it?
I struggle with this all the time.
I'm not, because I could literally say you're a writer and then it's like, but I feel like there's so many more things and facets to you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's unfair for me to say that. So
That's very kind of
Yeah.
you. So at Blavity, I'm a news writer. So I work on the Blavity news team and I write predominantly like entertainment news, like politics, everything. Anything that's like a trending topic that the blacks would be interested in,
Yeah.
I'm probably writing about it, right? Beyond there, I also I write about different stuff too. Like the great thing about Blavity is that I get the chance to like pitch other stories as well. So I get to write like much more like beyond those kind of like short form like news stories. So I'm a news writer, but I'm like a writer in general.
Okay.
And then I think in my career at large, okay, I think the term storyteller is super obnoxious. Like it's very much like, oh, I'm a storyteller. Like I hate it, but that's
I like how you say it though.
you like my accent? Yeah, so but I feel like that's probably like where I'm trying to go. I'm super interested in TV and film. I love podcasts, love being on a podcast. I listen to podcasts every day, round the clock. So yeah, I love different mediums, and I feel like the way that I approach writing is very much like I see it translating to different mediums. So I think that is like a storyteller kind of title, but I do think it's super obnoxious, but like I guess storyteller. But I'm very comfortable like being called like a writer because that's really like the core of what I am. Like that's the meat and potatoes, as they say.
Yes. Question.
Yeah.
The podcast.
Podcast.
It's yourself and someone else.
Yes.
Tell us about the podcast. Is it still on? They said someone was saying if you pass 8 episodes, you've done like really good.
Oh.
So like talk about the podcast
Yeah.
and it's something you're passionate about. So
Yeah.
is it still going on? Tell us about the podcast.
Sure thing. So I have a podcast with my best friend. Her name is Viet. She's like me, these like Kenyan-ish, American-ish, whatever you want to call us. I don't know like what our category is, but you know, like us.
You're Kenyan American.
Yeah, you know, Kenyan American, a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. I also grew up in the UK as well, so it's like a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like me in that way. And so yeah, our podcast is called Something to Say with VNK, available on any places that you listen to podcasts. And yeah, I love our podcast so much because it came from such an organic place. It happened, we started it in the pandemic. We were bored, we were roommates, we're like, what do we do? And we found ourselves, you know, having lots of like conversations that we felt like our peers could relate to. So in typical millennial fashion, we're like, oh, let's get on the mic.
Yes.
Let's share this with the world.
Yes.
We're important, you know? Love that about our generation. And so we did it, and we like put so much of our heart and soul into it. And yeah, so we have 2 seasons up right now. Love them both. Our whole thing is really like talking about everything that's really important to us. So a lot of it's like, you know, we do like some fun like pop culture, entertainment recap stuff. And then we'll have like deeper topics, like a lot about like mental health and relationships, like things that I think really like you struggle with and try and figure out in your 20s. That's kind of like the whole idea, is that we have something to say about this time in our lives. We have something to say about what it actually means to be a 20-something. Not really sure what you're doing, not really sure what you care about, not really sure what you are, and having honest conversations about what that really feels like. I feel like the media really kind of like branded your 20s as this like fabulous like Sex in the City time where you're like, oh, like you're meeting up with your 5 girlfriends in cafes and you're sashaying down city streets in like stilettos. Like it's not that, right? Like we're broke, we're tired, we're sad. You know, a lot of us are trying to make relationships work or trying to find someone.
Trying,
you know what I mean? Like it's hard. So yeah, that's the podcast right now. So where it stands right now, we have been on hiatus for a very long time. And that's just really because our lives really changed. My sweet co-host, she went to grad school. I obviously moved here. Careers change, things take off, different projects like just become overwhelming. So it's been a lot of that for a while, but we are finally like, okay, no, we're coming back. So super excited to share that season 3 is going to be coming really soon. Definitely before the end of the year. We're super, super excited. We've gotten to speak to some really cool people, and we're looking forward to doing that again, season 3, and having just like more conversations. Obviously, we're in different points in our lives now, so we have so much more to talk about and more to offer. So I am thrilled. I'm so excited.
What goals do you have, Koi?
What goals do I have? Oh my God. How much time do we have?
We have as much time as you need to articulate your goals.
I have so many goals. First of all, I want to be a titan in media, both here in the US. Get into the vocab words. Get into the title. Get into it.
Talk your shit. Talk that shit.
I want to be a name. I want to be a force. I want to be a brand. And I am moving towards that. I want to be an author. I really want to write books. I would love to write a memoir if anybody thinks that I'm interesting enough to do so. I would love to do that. I love writing personal essays. I've been doing it throughout my career, and I envision my memoir being a series of personal essays. So I see it in my head. People just have to care enough. You know what I mean? I want to be a producer. I want to be a director. I am such a film buff. That's like one of the my favorite things to do with my boyfriend, like watching movies and just really dissecting into like the meanings and the metaphors. Like I'm such a nerd about that, and so I would really love to get behind the camera. I also would love to be a host. I'd love to be in front of the camera. And I think ultimately, the kind of package on all of that is that I want to tell stories that not only belong to me and my communities, but also like are just underrepresented in the media, like things that we've never heard before, lives that we've never gotten to look into. That's really my ultimate goal, and doing that in as many different ways as possible, in many different mediums, reaching out and connecting to people, making people feel seen, making people feel comfortable and celebrated and loved through my art and through all different kinds of stuff is really what drives me and wakes me up in the morning.
Sitting here with you today, I'm really in awe about something. I love how honest and open you are.
Yeah.
So how is it that you're so comfortable that you definitely understand yourself, but like you're very open about life and what you're going through? I guess how's that so easy for you?
There are some topics that are easier than others for sure. But I think what compels me to do it is that I know someone out there could connect to something that I'm saying, right? So when I talk about my parents' very tumultuous divorce, I know that there's somebody out there that can relate to that and that can speak to. And if I can offer anybody a drop of healing, a drop of comfort, like I will happily do it. I know I've been lucky enough to see already in my career the power of sharing your stories. I remember that I wrote a personal essay about my time in Paris. Briefly after college, I lived in Paris for a while, and it was the hardest thing I've done in my life. I was super broke. I was super depressed. I was super isolated. I don't speak a lick of French. I don't know anybody in Paris. And
I'm like, what are you even doing in Paris?
No, who knows?
Niggas in Paris.
Like, no, niggas was in Paris. You know that Kanye meme where he's like,
I know.
No, niggas was in Paris. Like, I was in Paris, right?
Broke as fuck though.
And I just graduated college and I was super lost and I wasn't getting any jobs and I was super scared, and my parents, like, they could only do so much, right? Like the reality of me having to support myself hit like a Mack truck, right? And so I got this super random opportunity to go there to be an au pair, which is like a nanny.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck it. Like, what else am I doing? Like, I ain't got nothing going on. Like, and then of course, like there are so many things I was running away from, exes, rejection, disappointment, the list goes on. So yeah, I found myself in Paris, and I think it was super hard. It was a super sad time in my life, but it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Completely. I think being in a country where you don't know anybody, you're isolated. I wasn't doing anything beyond raising these kids, living in a servant's quarter, like facing the extreme racism. Parisians, they hate blacks and they hate Americans. So here I am, double whammy. Yeah. I'm just, you know what I mean? And I can't speak the language. Like, I was just, the hatred that I felt every day, I felt so insignificant and I was in so much pain. And I wrote an essay about that. And I mean, the responses I got were spectacular. I mean, people just really being so moved by it. And even my own parents being moved by it. My dad was estranged from me during the time that I was in Paris. And so when he read it, it was like, he didn't know about all that whole part of my life. And so seeing how it moved him and how it moved our relationship, like, words have power, stories have power, and they affect people in more ways than you can imagine. And that's what makes me comfortable, if comfortable is the word to use.
So, damn. What I get and what I understand is it's very important. It's very important.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. It's very rare. But I'm seeing someone who's teaching me something that is a foreign concept to me. There's seasons in your life.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that season in your life never happened where you had to find a way to express yourself, you wouldn't have the storyteller you are now. You know, you have to connect the dots. Everything makes sense in hindsight.
For sure.
In the moment, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But I feel like when you look back in hindsight, it all comes together. It starts to make sense.
Yeah.
And each season of your life, whether it's the childhood, whether it's the college, it shapes you to become who you are.
Yeah. I think the pain even more so than the happiness. Like, I'm so grateful for my pain.
Exactly.
I'm so grateful for my trauma. I'm so grateful for my pain because that has what has made me who I am. And that's what made me recognize who I am. Not even like who I am today, right? But being aware of it and having a relationship with myself and that part of who I am. Like, that's how you do it. That's how you connect with yourself, by recognizing it, by looking at it in the mirror every day and being like, oh, like, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. Like, that's such a huge part of the puzzle for me.
So I have 2 final questions.
Yeah.
Easy one first, or which one? It's 2 questions.
Yeah.
You can choose the easy one or the hard one. Which one do you want to go first with?
I love a challenge. Let's go with the hard one.
When it's all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for caring. I want to be remembered for being honest and being brave. Not me getting emotional. I want to be remembered for being somebody who made people feel those things, not even for being those things myself, but for bringing that up in other people. I want to be remembered as somebody who brought out other people's joy and who brought joy into the world and brought understanding and acceptance and love into the world in as many ways as possible.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I would love to know, and it was my first question, and then I kept it for last, and I've kind of added it for something else too.
Yeah.
A lot of people listening from all over the place right now. What are, I guess, Kenyan podcasts you listen to and you would recommend or enjoy, if any, and then the Kenyan music you like?
Oh my gosh.
So I want to know some Kenyan music you can put us on. That either put us on or tell us the Kenyan music you like, and then any Kenyan podcast you listen to or would listen to.
For sure. When it comes to Kenyan music, I will say, and I'm actually like this with books too. I'm such like a lover of the oldie, so like anything nameless, really, like, you know what I mean? Anything like Ogopa DJs, like that's the music that I remember listening to in my youth. So while I do obviously, like, there are so many like young up and coming artists. My boyfriend works in music, so he's always putting me on. And so
shout out the boyfriend.
Shout out the boyfriend. Hey, Will, he's here. Yeah, so he's always putting me on to new music, but I find myself always gravitating towards the old school stuff that I would see like my older cousins like grooving to and dancing to. In terms of Kenyan podcasts, I gotta admit, I'm discovering more, I will say. I'm a big fan of Man Talk. Man Talk is super fun. I think, you know, as a woman, obviously, like there are so many podcasts that I listen to that are like women driven. Obviously, I have my own podcast. It's female driven. So hearing a male's perspective, I think is really fun to podcast. So love Man Talk. And yeah, I also... This podcast is not, my phone.
Sorry, it's okay.
Yeah, this podcast isn't Kenyan, but it is a young woman in the U.S. who is of African descent, and she does really care about telling Kenyan stories, which is why I feel good amplifying her. Okay. It's called the Sub-Saharan Beauty Podcast, and she's super dope because she's just like, she's focused on beauty, but she's really interested in what's happening on the continent with beauty, and I recorded an episode with her. Super fun. We're doing another one soon. So yeah, love her as well. Shout out to her.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much.
I feel like we tried for. I feel like I tried for this interview because in the sense of we tried to make it happen.
Yeah, we did.
We tried, and
oh my gosh!
And I'm glad it happened this way.
Yeah.
I had to chase you for this one, but I really appreciate you making time.
That's not true.
You're busy. You're busy.
I'm busy. I'm a busy girl.
And that's good.
No, but I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much. I loved this reunion. Please invite me back. I had so much fun.
I will.
Thank you
most
so
definitely. So you guys, that was Kui Mwai. She's shared a lot. Like a lot. Like
it wasn't even half.
I feel like
I could talk more.
We gave you guys a whole podcast. Literally, like you guys should be entertained and inspired.
We should have a podcast.
But I want to take a short break. I want to play you guys a documentary. It's a Radio 254 documentary. you guys need to hear this. I don't know what you guys are going to think, but you guys are going to listen to this and let me know. And I also want to thank my sponsors, Rolling Barrels. So definitely, if you're looking for a drink, if you're looking for like how to start your weekend, call Rolling Barrels. The number is 0795 888 They've got special deals on everything and anything. So if you're looking for gin, if you're looking for whiskey, if you're looking for beer, whatever you're fancying, they got you covered. So give them a call at 0795 888 I'm going to take a short break, listen to the documentary, and then we'll be right back. Thank you.
Get you pop like ecstasy. This should be endlessly killing people on the streets like